In this series, we get to the heart of some really core Chinese values that have been and continue to be important drivers of this ancient civilization. We look at a life devoted to scholarship and avoidance of materialism in Fan Zhongyan. We see a man, Ji Zha, with a notion of morality that transcends practical considerations, and we meet an ordinary railway worker battling incredibly harsh conditions to play her part in creating a marvel of modern Chinese infrastructure. We also take a look at the values which formed China's greatest ancient historian, Sima Qian. We also take a look at a different type of Chinese value in Tao Yuanming and the great Song dynasty artist Wen Yuke, both of whom are trying to reconnect with nature and embody the value of 天人合一。在这一集，我们会借鉴中国价值观的中心思想，那是在中国文化中长期存在的思想。我们会看到终身学习、放弃物质的樊中燕，会看到坚持道德准则的季札，会看到在中国基建方面发挥重要作用的一个普通工人。会看到中国最伟大的历史学家司马迁的价值观，也会从陶渊明和著名宋代画家文宇可身上看到独特的思想。他们两个都试图去实现天人合一。这个著名的故事描绘了中国画的审美语境，也就增加了讲给外国朋友的价值。通过描写文宇可不用看就能画出竹子，清晰地展示了中国画不追求形式的特点。换句话说，他们不仅仅是把看到内容反映出来，而是试图捕捉和传达对所画的事物，而是跟文宇可有亲密关系的事物。他种植竹子多年，对竹子寄托了特殊情感，他希望在纸上表达的是他脑海中的竹子有多么坚强。换句话说，他也是表达他自己，而不是简单的画竹子看上去的样子。这个故事另外一方面是将文宇可的绘画与书法进行对比，这也揭示了很多关于中国画中笔触的重要性。这从意义上说，传统中国画让人想起了印象派画家莫奈或者梵高清晰的那种笔触。我们欣赏画作的质感，也欣赏画作所展示的内容。好的，现在我把我们这个故事的英文版从我们这个用英语讲中国故事一书来朗诵一下。Painting inspiration from bamboo. Su Shi, a literary giant of the northern Song dynasty, 960 to 1127 AD, had a friend named Wen Yuke. This man was skilled at painting pictures of bamboos. One day, Su Shi paid a visit to Wen Yuke to ask him to paint a picture of bamboos for him. Pushing open his friend's courtyard gate, Su Shi saw that all around the house, vigorously growing, were all kinds of bamboos, tall or short, thick or thin. As he walked past them, he asked himself which kind of bamboo he should choose to ask Wen Yuke to paint for him. When he reached Wen's study, he saw that his friend had already laid out his brush, ink, paper, and ink slab. After a few words of greeting, Su Shi said, "My old friend, I particularly like those 3 bamboos at your west window. In spite of being slender, they have not lost their vigor, and their grace yet exudes toughness. Come, let us move the desk out there so that you can see them as you paint." "Move the desk?" Wen Yuke frowned at Su Shi. "What are you talking about? I can paint them just as well from here." Su Shi shook his head in doubt. "Paint them from here? Do you know which 3 bamboos I mean? How on earth can you paint their likeness from here?" Wen Yuke laughed and said, "My friend Su, Rest assured, I have been growing these 100 or so bamboos for over 10 years. Spring, summer, autumn and winter, come rain or come shine, I've tended them and carefully watched them grow. I know intimately whether their stalks are long or short, whether their branches are thick or thin, whether their leaves are narrow or broad, and whether they are green or yellow. The varieties of bamboo have long been deeply implanted in my mind. You could say that bamboos are growing in my breast. I don't need to see them before I paint them. So saying, Wen Yuke began to paint with flourishes of his brush. When he painted the bamboo's roots and trunks, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in regular script with a firm and steady hand. The joints of the bamboos were represented using some pressure from the fully inked brush. The allure of the vigour and gentleness of the older bamboos was expressed through splashes and spots. When Wei Yuke painted the branches, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in running script, his brush flowing smoothly and uninterruptedly. When he painted the leaves, he paid special attention to their arrangement and the spacing between them. He was meticulously careful to put everything in its exact place in terms of major and minor, fullness and emptiness, and before and behind. The whole painting appeared to be filled with harmonious variety. Knowing that Su Shi was a man of a flamboyant and romantic nature, his friend deliberately painted wind-blown bamboos. When the painting was finished, Su Shi could not help clapping his hands and exclaiming in praise when he saw it. It's as if the original 3 west window bamboos had been transplanted onto paper. Moreover, as the bamboos are leaning toward the east, it's as if a breeze is blowing, and even the shadows of the bamboos seem to be moving. Superb! Wen Yuke smiled and said, if you compare it to pictures painted by other bamboo painters, you will find that they simply copy joint after joint and pile up leaf after leaf. There is no completeness, no living image of the bamboos. Before one begins to paint, it is necessary first to have a complete image in one's mind. Then, when one picks up the brush, one must yield it like a rabbit running to escape a pouncing hawk, pursuing the image in one's mind. The faster and more fluently you do this, the better the picture. Clapping his hands, Su Shi beamed and said, I really believe that you have a bamboo in your breast. The moral of this story. When Wen Yuke painted bamboos, he embodied the core principle of ancient Chinese painting. The idea precedes the brush. Chinese painting, unlike Western oil painting, pursues the spirit rather than the mere likeness in shape of the subject. Like the aesthetic attitude which emphasizes freehand brushstrokes, this technique requires a tacit grasp of the inner subject, or a bamboo in the breast. Okay, let's now do a little bit of recitation practice. We'll take a look at the passage which describes Wen Yuke as he paints. In this passage, we need to set up contrasts in our voice as we describe the different styles of brushstrokes. 接下来，我们来做一些诵读练习，来看一看文语课创作过程的描述。在描绘不同风格的笔触时，我们要让声音产生对比。我们来听一听。So saying, Wen Yuke began to paint with flourishes of his brush. When he painted the bamboo's roots and trunks, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in regular script with a firm and steady hand. The joints of the bamboos were represented using some pressure from the fully inked brush. The allure of the vigour and gentleness of the older bamboos was expressed through splashes and spots. When Wen Yuke painted the branches, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in running script, his brush flowing smoothly and uninterruptedly. When he painted the leaves, he paid special attention to their arrangement and the spacing between them. So when we describe the first kind of brushstroke, we need to convey that it is stable and steady in the way we emphasize the words firm and steady. We need to slow down our voice and pause a little between words.
在介绍第一种笔触的时候，我们需要在强调单词 firm 和 steady 时，语气坚定稳重。我们需要放慢语速，并且在单词间稍微停顿一下，来听一听。
When he painted the bamboo's roots and trunks, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in regular script with a firm and steady hand. As we talk about the splashes and spots, our voice needs to have a short, sharp, staccato feel to it.
在读到 splashes 和 spots 的时候，我们需要处理的干净利索。我们来听一听。
The allure of the vigor and gentleness of the older bamboos was expressed through splashes and spots. Finally, when we talk about the running script, our voice needs to become much quicker and smoother.
最后，当我们读到 running script 的时候，我们的语速要加快，声音要顺畅。
His brush flowing smoothly and interruptedly. Let's listen to the whole passage again.
好的，咱们再从头到尾来读一遍。
So saying, Wen Yuke began to paint with flourishes of his brush. When he painted the bamboo's roots and trunks, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in regular script with a firm and steady hand. The joints of the bamboos were represented using some pressure from the fully inked brush. The allure of the vigour and gentleness of the older bamboos was expressed through splashes and spots. When Wen Yuke painted the branches, it was as if he were doing a calligraphic work in running script, his brush flowing smoothly and interruptedly. When he painted the leaves, he paid special attention to their arrangement and the spacing between them. Okay, that's it for today's class. Bye for now.